When Madhusudan Sri Krishna saw Arjun sinking in an ocean of compassion, his eyes filled with tears, he spoke thus.
Arjun, at this hour of crisis in this battlefield, when righteousness is under threat, how have you allowed such low despondent thoughts to take control of your mind? Those who understand the value and importance of life do not become sorrowful, abandon their path of duty, and sink into despair in such a manner. This not only causes one to fall from grace, but also brings infamy upon them. Parth, it is unbecoming of a brave warrior like you to succumb to weakness and impotence in the face of emasculating emotions. O conqueror of enemies, cast aside these petty feelings that weaken the heart and rise to fight.
O destroyer of enemies, O Madhusudan, Bhishma and Drona are venerable elders to me, worthy of my worship. How can I stand against them in battle? It would be better to live a humble life of a beggar than to kill such great souls and teachers. Even though they are fighting on the side of those blinded by greed, they are still worthy of my reverence. If they are slain by me, whatever pleasure we enjoy will be smeared by their blood. We are unable to decide what is better, to conquer them or getting conquered by them. While we would never want to live by killing the sons of Dhritarashtra, they are now standing before us willing to fight, seeking to kill us. This overwhelming compassion has confused me, made me lose sight of my duty and weakened me. In this situation, I ask you to tell me for certain what would be truly beneficial for me. I fully surrender myself to you. Take me as your disciple. Please guide me on the path of welfare. This grief is parching my senses, and I am unable to find a solution. Even if I were to gain sovereignty over the earth like the heavens, like the gods themselves, I would still not be free from this sorrow.
Having spoken thus, the enemy destroyer Arjun said to Sri Krishna, Govind, I will not fight. Then he fell silent. O descendant of Bharat, seeing Arjun in a state of sorrow, the all-knowing Sri Krishna, smiling gently, began to address him.
Just like learned scholars, you have described your points very well and are now immersed in sorrow. But you are lamenting for those who are not worthy of grief. The wise never grieve for those who are alive, nor for those who are dead. There was never a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future will any of us cease to exist. The soul residing in the body continuously journeys from childhood to youth and then to old age. After leaving one body, the soul takes on a new body and starts its journey from childhood again. A person with a steady mind is never disturbed by such changes. Just as winter and summer seasons come and go, and their effects are felt by the body for a brief period, similarly, happiness and sorrow also come and go. They do not last forever. Therefore, O descendant of Bharat, one should endure them without getting disturbed. A person who is not disturbed by happiness and sorrow and remains steady in both progresses on the path of liberation. Those who have realized the truth in its true essence declare that the eternal remains unchanging and that alone holds true existence, while the material is transient and does not last forever. Know that the one which pervades the entire creation and resides within you is indestructible. No force has the power to destroy that imperishable soul. While the soul is eternal, unchanging, and ever existent, the destruction of the body is certain. Therefore, O descendant of Bharat, fight. One who believes that the soul kills or that the soul is killed, does not know the truth. The soul neither slays, nor can it be slain. The soul is never born, nor does it ever die. It has not come into being at any time, nor will it ever come into being. It is birthless, eternal, timeless, and ancient. Even when the body is destroyed, the soul remains unscathed. O Parth, how can one who knows the soul to be indestructible, eternal, without beginning, and everlasting, ever think of killing anyone or getting killed by someone? Just as a person discards old clothes and puts on new ones, the soul discards worn out bodies and takes on new ones. The soul can neither be cut by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor dissolved by water, nor dried by wind. The individual soul is unbreakable, incombustible, insoluble, and unchangeable. It is eternal, all-pervading, stable, immovable, and timeless. The soul is invisible and unchangeable, beyond the grasp of intellect. Knowing this, you should not grieve for anyone. And yet, O mighty armed one, if you think that the soul takes birth and dies forever, even then you should not grieve for anyone. One who is born, death is certain, and for one who dies, rebirth is inevitable. In this unchanging cycle of life and death, when your duty stands before you, it does not befit you to grieve. Arjun, all living beings are unmanifest before birth and return to being unmanifest after death. It is only in the interim that they appear manifest. Knowing this, why should you grieve for any living being? Some perceive the soul with awe and wonder, while others speak of it as astonishing. Yet many, even after hearing about the soul, completely fail to comprehend it. O descendant of Bharat, the soul dwelling in every body is indestructible. Therefore, you should not grieve for anyone. You should only focus on your duty as a Kshatriya. You should be aware that nothing else can be better for you than fighting a righteous war. Refraining from such a war based on religious principles is unbecoming of you. O Parth, truly blessed are those Kshatriyas for whom such a righteous war presents itself, a noble duty that opens the gates to celestial abodes for them. But if you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins and bring dishonor upon yourself. People will forever speak of your disgrace. For one who is honored, dishonor is worse than death itself. The great warriors who hold you in high esteem will think that you fled from the battlefield out of fear. They will consider you insignificant and worthless. Your enemies will humiliate you with unkind words and mock your strengths. What could be more painful than this for you? O son of Kunti, if you fight and get killed in this battle, you will ascend to heavenly abode with glory. If you emerge victorious, you will enjoy the sovereignty of the earth and its riches. Therefore rise with firm resolve, determined to fight. Treat happiness and sorrow, gain and loss, victory and defeat as equal, and fight this righteous battle simply because it is your religious duty. If you will fight with such a sense of duty, you will remain free from all sins. Until now, I have explained the nature of the soul through the path of Sankhya Yoga. Now, hear the wisdom of performing your duties through the path of Karma Yoga, which I shall reveal unto you. O Parth, when you stabilize your intellect in Karma Yoga and perform your duties, the results of your actions will fail to bind you, and you will always remain free from all sorts of bondages. Those who walk the path of Karma Yoga and perform their prescribed duties, none of their effort ever gets wasted, nor is there any loss of reward. Even a slight progress on this path protects one from greatest of fears. O beloved child of Kurus, those who tread the path of Karma Yoga have a focused and resolute intellect, which is always fixed on their religious duty. They are devoted to performing auspicious actions, their prescribed duties. In contrast, those who are not on this path, their mind remains entangled in numerous options and their consequences, leading to confusion. These individuals, whose minds are distracted, have limited knowledge and vision. They are captivated by the rituals described in the Vedas, which promise heaven, power, fame, and other worldly pleasures. Their focus remains on a life filled with indulgence and sensory gratification, and therefore they fail to see beyond such attachments. Their actions, driven by these desires, bind them to the endless cycle of birth and death. Those whose mind remains engrossed in the pursuit of sensual pleasures and material desires, their intellect remains confused. Such a mind attached to worldly comforts is unsuitable for attaining the Supreme Lord. The Vedas comprehensively describe the three modes of material nature. O Arjun, rise above these modes and establish yourself in pure consciousness. Fix your mind on the ultimate truth, detached from likes and dislikes, all sorts of aversions, free from concerns of material gain, all sorts of attachments, and from feelings of loss and security. Remain absorbed in the self, transcending the material realm. One who is in possession of an abundant reservoir of water doesn't care for the limited supply of a small well. Similarly, a soul that has become steadfast in its own divine essence finds little necessity in the ritualistic actions described in the Vedas. Such a person is immersed in the boundless bliss of union with the Supreme. You have the right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Never think of yourself as the cause of the results of your activities. And whenever duties call, never surrender to inaction. O Dhananjay, remaining equipoised in success and failure, renouncing all attachment to the fruits of your actions, keep performing your duties steadfastly. Such equanimity is called yoga. O Dhananjay, detach your mind from the fruits of your actions. Anchor your intellect in divine consciousness and act with a heart free from worldly desires. Pitiable are those miserly ones who are attached to the fruits of their actions. A Karma Yogi devoted to the divine remains untouched by the bondage of both virtuous and sinful actions. Therefore, dedicate yourself to performing your duties in the spirit of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is actually the art of working skillfully. Great sages and devotees, filled with the spirit of divine surrender, perform their duties without attachment to the outcomes. This attitude of selfless action frees them from all sorts of miseries, liberates them from the cycle of birth and death, and leads them to the ultimate state of blissful union with the divine. When you work in such a spirit of renunciation, you will gradually come out of the dense forest of delusion. Your intellect will then become indifferent to all the worldly concerns of the past and those of which would be spoken in the future. When the enchanting verses of the Vedas fail to captivate your mind, then you will transcend their allure. You will then experience transcendental peace. Your mind will be firmly anchored in divine consciousness, and your being will merge in ultimate tranquility.
O Keshav, what are the symptoms of a person whose consciousness is merged in the divine, who is deeply immersed in spiritual realization? O Krishna, how does such a self-realized being speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? And how does he conduct himself in this world?
O Parth, when a person gives up all varieties of desires and cravings that arise in the mind, when all sorts of longings fail to influence him, and his mind thus eventually becomes pure, serene, and finds satisfaction within the bliss of the self alone, Such a person is situated in pure divine consciousness. One whose mind is merged in such tranquility is said to be situated in transcendence. One whose mind remains undisturbed amidst towering sorrows and also does not get elated when there is happiness, who is free from attachment, fear, and anger. Know such a person to be a sage of steady mind. One who remains unaffected by both the favorable and unfavorable outcomes, who neither rejoices in praise nor grieves in criticism. Know that such a person is firmly fixed in highest knowledge and wisdom. Just as a tortoise withdraws its limbs into its shell, a sage whose senses get naturally withdrawn from their objects of indulgence is firmly fixed in divine consciousness. Ordinary individuals, even when abstaining from sense indulgences, retain a lingering attachment to their pleasures. But a self-realized soul, absorbed in divine consciousness, loses all fascination and attachment, even to the very essence of those sense pleasures. The senses, O Parth, are exceedingly powerful. Even great sages and yogis, striving to subdue their senses, can have their minds carried away by sense objects. However, one who restrains his senses and keeps it under his control, and anchors his consciousness firmly in me, the Supreme Lord, such a self-controlled sage is truly endowed with steady wisdom. When a person contemplates the objects of the senses, his mind gets attached to it, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. Due to anger, the mind gets deluded, and because of delusion, memory gets subdued. When memory is subdued, intelligence is lost, and once intelligence is lost, that person falls into the cycle of desires and attachments in the material world. On the other hand, a self-controlled yogi, free from all attachments and aversions, whose senses are subdued and guided in the direction of righteous action, gradually immerses in divine consciousness. Such a yogi remains established in the Supreme, untouched by worldly temptations. His mind remains satisfied and ever peaceful. Such a yogi finds oneness with the Supreme. All sorts of sufferings and worldly desires cease to exist in his life. A person whose consciousness experiences such calmness always enjoys a steady intellect. But for a person whose mind is restless, which is not anchored in the divine, neither has transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, because of which he never experiences peace. And without peace, can there be any happiness in one's life? Just like a gust of wind pushes a boat off course and makes it wobble in the water, a person whose mind gets attached to even a single sense object loses his intelligence and begins to drift and wander. O Mighty One, even after experiencing sensory pleasures, if someone's senses remain unaffected and unattached, know such a self-controlled person as wise and with a steady intellect. The wisdom that leads to self-realization feels like the darkness of night to worldly people. They don't understand or engage with it. But for a self-aware, composed yogi, such wisdom is like the light of dawn. It awakens their consciousness. On the other hand, worldly discussions about fleeting pleasures feel vibrant and exciting to most people. But to a wise person, such talk feels meaningless, like the darkness of night, and they naturally drift into slumber. Imagine the ocean. No matter how many rivers flow into it, it remains steady and unaffected. Similarly, a person who remains calm and composed, even when streams of desires enter into it, experiences true peace, and not the one who gets carried away by desires and strives to fulfill them. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, whose life is free from attachment, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, and who is devoid of ego, he alone attains true peace. Such a person takes to the spiritual path and never strays from it. Even if one reaches this state at the hour of death, one can achieve union with the Supreme, the Parbrahma.